All right, we are back. Audio issues in the past. Got the mic fixed. Last little bit of troubleshooting before the regular season. 49ers Jets. This is the first deep dive. I think this is such a compelling week one matchup. Obviously, it's the return of Aaron Rodgers. A lot of the national media is going to be interested in that story. He played a grand total of what? 8 snaps last year, if that. He was injured by Leonard Floyd. The sack when Leonard Floyd registered on Aaron Rodgers, that was when he tore his Achilles. So I'm not going to sit there and say that Leonard Floyd, uh, maliciously hurt Aaron Rodgers, but sometimes just the way that things work in football. So that's going to come full circle. Floyd was with the Bills last season. He's with the 49ers this season. Brock Purdy against Kyle Shanahan's former defensive coordinator, Robert Saleh. 49ers coaches, some 49ers players on the other side. You'll be sure to hear about Javon Kinlaw during this preview show. Solomon Thomas. I mean, you got a couple of former 49ers first-round D-line picks who didn't quite work out with the 49ers. They're now playing on the Jets defensive line under Robert Saleh, who was the coordinator for Javon Kinlaw when the 49ers picked him and the coordinator for Solomon Thomas back when they picked him. So you've got that little full circle story happening. You've got the Brock Purdy reunion. It's the Iowa State reunion, I guess I should say. Probably the most players that we've ever seen in a single game, Iowa State alumni in the NFL. 4 of them. Purdy, Brees Hall, and 2 other guys, Alan Lazard and Will McDonald IV. So you've got that. Purdy and Brees Hall, we all know they were college roommates back in the day. You got a bad Jets offensive line against the 49ers defensive line that's looking for a resurgence this year. You got Trent Williams and Brandon Ayuk coming off of contract holdout and hold in, respectively, against a really damn good Jets defense, coordinated, by the way, by Robert Saleh. But take a look at this. This is, I think, the ultimate illustrator of what to expect in this game, and it's a way to chart expectations. How far can Aaron Rodgers move the Jets on this graph? Offensive efficiency by EPA per play is measured on the x-axis from the left side to the right side. Defensive efficiency is measured on the y-axis from bottom to top. So the further to the right you are, the better your offense is. The 49ers were the number 1 offense in all of football last year. The inverse is also true. The further to the left you are, the worse your offense is. The Jets were the worst offense in the NFL last year. So you have the best offense in the league versus the worst offense in the league. 49ers, Jets. Now, the Jets now have Aaron Rodgers. So the question is, how far will Aaron Rodgers move the Jets logo on the offensive scale? Because, as you could see here, they're in the upper right. That means their defense was actually doing something good. And it was doing something better than the 49ers. The Jets actually had a top-tier defense last season, whereas the 49ers didn't. The Jets are behind only the Browns and the Ravens in terms of defensive efficiency per play. The 49ers ranked about 10th. 49ers had been higher, but then Steve Wilks came, the run defense suffered, and they dropped down to near the middle of the pack defensively. So they want to bring it back up to a top tier. And on the other side of the football, they might be seeing a top tier defense in the Jets. I think both of these defenses are also built similarly, and I'll get into that in a little bit. I don't think that's a coincidence with Robert Saleh being the Jets defensive coordinator. But anyway, the Jets are up here, or they were up here last year. We'll see where they are this season. Number 3 defense against the number 1 49ers offense. Anytime you see a team on the very right play a team that's on the very top, well, you get a good idea of, what kind of showdown you're getting. And that's a great offense against a great defense. Look, the 2 best defenses that the 49ers faced last year were the Browns and the Ravens. The 49ers offense saw struggles against both of those teams. Now, there were extenuating factors against the Browns and the Ravens. Against the Browns, it was wet. Trent Williams got hurt in that game. Deebo Samuel got hurt in that game. Christian McCaffrey got hurt in that game. Brock Purdy was still able to lead the 49ers to set up the potential game-winning field goal. Jake Moody didn't make it. Against the Ravens, that was the second best defense, and I think a surging defense at the end of the season. They made some plays. Purdy threw all those interceptions against the Ravens, but you had to give Baltimore some big-time credit for sniffing out some of those short passes, especially the deflected pick. That was just a hell of a play from the Ravens. The point is that great defenses, the ones at the very top here of this chart, they're probably going to make some plays. They're probably going to make life hard for you. And since we saw them make life hard for Brock Purdy and the 49ers last season, we do have to mention that the Jets are coming off last season in which they also had a really, really good defense behind only the Browns and the Ravens. Anyway, it's week 1. This is the 49ers Jets, the first deep dive. We got some video content from you, some interviews from back east from the Jets, but we also have to talk about the weaknesses that the 49ers are going to try to get after when they play New York this weekend. And I think that the weak Jets offensive line, I think we saw it over the few plays with Aaron Rodgers last year where they were really struggling to block for him. I still remember before he tore the Achilles in that season opener against Buffalo, I still remember watching the fact that Aaron Rodgers didn't have time to throw on those first few snaps. And I was like, how is he going to last the whole season? And the spoiler to that, the answer was that he didn't last the whole season because that offensive line was not good. They did sign Tyron Smith, the free agent formerly of the Dallas Cowboys, to try to improve things to man the left tackle position. The 49ers have beaten Tyron Smith before. He's probably going to get some action against Nick Bosa in this game. Morgan Moses is on the other side of the offensive line. They went to guys that used to be with Baltimore. For some reason, the Jets took a liking to Baltimore's offensive linemen. So they've got John Simpson at left guard and Morgan Moses at that right tackle position. No more Mekhi Becton. Remember him? He was the very high draft pick, huge offensive lineman for the Jets. That didn't pan out for them. They ranked number 29 and number 30 in pass block win rate and one of the other pass blocking metrics last season. It wasn't good enough to protect Rodgers, and it definitely wasn't good enough to field a good offense, as is evidenced by the fact that the Jets are on the very, very left of this graph. But it's a different looking line this year. Joe Tippmann's at the center position, and Elijah Vera Tucker is that right guard. He's a homegrown player. I don't know how much better the line will be with Tyron Smith anchoring the left side, but I also know that the 49ers have retooled their own defensive line. I know that they've got Leonard Floyd in there now. We'll see if they have Yetur Gross-Matos. We're going to have to monitor that at practice, and the week starts in earnest tomorrow. They have a new interior, so we'll see what the interior can do. Malik Collins restructured his contract yesterday. Jordan Elliott, the former Cleveland Brown, part of that Cleveland defense that was at the very top of the heap. This is going to be an interesting battle against the Jets front that has to protect Aaron Rodgers better than it did last year. Here's another aspect of this matchup. This is going to be a DB heavy game. And by that, I mean, both defenses have really, really good secondaries. I've talked so much over the course of training camp and the preseason about how spruced up the 49ers cornerback room is. Well, the Jets, I mean, they've drafted from the ground up at the cornerback room. They've got Sauce Gardner on one of the sides, and then they have an acquisition, the guy that was drafted by the 49ers, a 5th-round pick, DJ Reed, playing at that right cornerback side. So you have DJ Reed plus Javon Kinlaw plus Solomon Thomas all on this Jets defense, plus Brock Purdy's former teammate, Will McDonald IV from Iowa State. Pretty cool stuff, right? Like everything comes full circle. Guess who else is on the Jets defense? Isaiah Oliver. Yes, the nickelback who had a short-lived tenure with the 49ers. Steve Wilkes wanted a bigger body at the nickelback position. Didn't have a lot of change of direction, though, through Isaiah Oliver. 49ers had to bench him right around the bye week, mid-season. Steve Wilkes also obviously was shown the door. Well, Oliver, by the way, was released. Oliver has signed with the Jets, and he's now playing safety which is where he was to end last season as a backup. He saw some action at safety for the 49ers in that game against Philadelphia when they had some injuries at the position. So anyway, it's a DB heavy game because you look across the secondary for the Jets and it's a really, really talented secondary. DJ Reed on one side, as I mentioned, Sauce Gardner on the other. Tony Adams and Chuck Clark are the two safeties, and Michael Carter's second is playing nickelback for the New York Jets. Solid group, and anybody rushing behind Quinnen Williams, who is one of the best interior linemen in the league, is going to be paired with Javon Kinlaw now, the former 49er. But anybody rushing behind somebody that could wreak havoc in the middle of the formation, especially when the 49ers' biggest weakness, I think, is that center position. I wouldn't be surprised to see some A-gap lineups from Quinnen Williams and company, maybe even Javon Kinlaw. But when you do have question marks at the very middle of the offense against an awesome Jets defense, and they were a top 3 defense last year, it can create problems. So the DB heavy game, talking about the 49ers secondary, talking about the New York Jets secondary as well. And, Kinlaw, Solomon Thomas, also don't forget when we're talking about Isaiah Oliver and DJ Reed, ex-49ers across the board for the New York Jets. This is a 4-3. This is a Saleh system. They currently don't have Hassan Reddick. He continues holding out. I wonder if Will McDonald IV is going to be somebody who gets a lot more snaps because of that. He's a second-year player out of Iowa State. Didn't have a great rookie season considering the fact that he was a first-round draft pick, but it certainly will be interesting to see what his role is here in year 2. Brock Purdy against this Jets defense is going to be an awesome type of chess match because, again, he struggled against the top 2 defenses on this chart last year against the Cleveland Browns and the Baltimore Ravens. And I think that this is a hell of a test right out of bed for Brock Purdy. Maybe with not the best rapport, cohesion right now with somebody like Brandon Ayuk. But I will say, it just needs more time. I will say this, though. We can go to the 49ers 90-man depth chart to help preview this in the context of this game against the Jets. This is the healthiest of the 49ers have been in a long time. So pink signifies a guy that's out of practice due to an injury. I don't see any pink on the offensive side of the ball. We moved Ricky Pearsall to the PUP NFI list. By the way, if you guys want me to talk about that in a little bit, I was in juvenile court today to report. I got the email from the San Francisco district attorney and went to juvenile court to report on the trial or the proceeding. It was the first hearing regarding the Ricky Pearsall shooting incident in Union Square in San Francisco on Saturday. And the 17-year-old defendant was there, and I was able to be in the courtroom today, and there's some reporting on that up on The Athletic, up on my Twitter, if you want to go check it out. There wasn't all that much that we learned today, but the next chapter of that, it's going to be on September 10th, which is next Tuesday, so I'll probably swing back by and gather some more for you at that time. It's going to be the day after the 49ers play the Jets on Monday Night Football. So that's an update just on what I was doing today on the off day from 49ers practice. We're going to be out there tomorrow. And when we're out there tomorrow, we do have to talk about what Brock Purdy is going to bring against the really good New York Jets defense, or what was a really good defense last year that returns a lot of its players. And speaking of that, Quincy Williams, one of the Jets linebackers, this is from the Jets, spoke at media availability this week about Brock Purdy. Have a listen into this.
Purdy as a quarterback, Quincy.
Oh, man, I like him. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think he get the recognition that, he deserves. Like, he's a great quarterback. He's also good with all the motions and things like that, getting to where he want everybody to be. I like him.
Quincy Williams likes Brock Purdy. The Jets have some good linebackers. I mean, they've got a high-priced one in C.J. Mosley. Used to be with the Ravens, and the Jets signed him away. Quincy Williams is the weak side backer. I think they both can cover again, this was the number 3 defense in football last year, and it has adopted a lot of the principles that made the 49ers defenses really good before that, because Robert Saleh brought the Seattle style 4-3 cover 3 to the New York Jets. But there's a respect there for Brock Purdy, who has all of his weapons now at his disposal. Now we'll see how integrated everybody is by this week 1 game. And we'll also see how well the 49ers block somebody like Quinnen Williams in the middle. They're going to have to block a Javon Kinlaw in the middle. By the way, Javon Kinlaw had a good year rushing the passer for the 49ers last year. That was not a problem for San Francisco. I think it was more of a run defense problem. So, I mean, he was an above average pass rusher for the 49ers. Aaron Banks coming off the pinky. Jake Brendel, who, I think that center position may be the biggest question mark on this 49ers team. Dominic Pooney making his first career start. These guys are going to have to be ready to take on some solid interior rushers for the New York Jets. And, the tackles are going to have to be ready too. Mike Williams is going to be, looking at the wrong side here. But with the Jets, you look at the fact that they were carried by the defensive side of the ball last season. That side, if it gets any bit of help from the offensive side of the ball, from Aaron Rodgers, from Mike Williams, the former Charger that I was just talking about, if Garrett Wilson is able to deliver a little bit more with his new QB. Talk about Alan Lazard too, the former Iowa State Cyclone. If that offense is able to give the Jets defense a little bit of support that they didn't have last year, that Jets defense can turn it from number 3 in the league to absolute turbocharge. And that's a situation in which the 49ers would be facing a really, really tough task. To me, that's a marquee matchup. That's a marquee matchup in the making. The number 1 49ers offense from a year ago against the Jets defense that may be even better here in the 2023 season. So I'm really looking forward to it. I think that that's excellent. And I think anything that involves Aaron Rodgers on one side and Nick Bosa and the 49ers defense on the other side, I think that's always going to be an appetizer for something delicious. I mean, we're going to have, last time Aaron Rodgers came to a primetime game at Levi's Stadium was when he beat the 49ers in that 2021 season with the Packers. And I mean, he played his heart out. He made some insane throws, including that one to help dig the Packers out of a hole and set up a field goal at the very end. Rodgers is older now. Rodgers is coming off the Achilles, but this will be entertainment value at its very peak. I think people are tuning in to see what happens. There's a lot of intrigue about this game. A huge question, though, is how can that offensive line operate in front of Aaron Rodgers? Because that 49ers defensive line is retooled, and I think they're looking, and I'm going to show you the depth chart right now. All of the turquoise color shades are free agent signings of defensive line, and Yetur Gross-Matos, even though he's hurt right now, he falls into that category as well. 49ers are looking to reestablish themselves up front. Malik Collins had some manly plays over the course of training camp, so he's going to get to work against the interior of this Jets offensive line, maybe against a John Simpson, maybe occasionally against an Elijah Vera Tucker. Leonard Floyd. What side is Leonard Floyd going to rush on primarily? Tyron Smith is on one at left tackle for the Jets, and Morgan Moses is on the other. I think Nick Bosa likes to flip from side to side, so he determines how the 49ers are aligned. And, back when Tyron Smith was with the Cowboys, Bosa liked to rush against the right because they used the power move from Charles Omenihu in that 2021 playoff game. Power from Omenihu was really able to neutralize Tyron Smith, one of the better tackles that we've seen over the past couple decades. So I'm curious to see how the 49ers handle the rushing assignments in this game, because the Jets, I don't think, can be as bad as they were up front last year, given the additions. But we have seen Tyron Smith show vulnerability against the 49ers. All right, I'm going to open it up here. A few minutes of a Q&A. I think that's a pretty good deep dive into the intricacies of this game. I'm going to get further into the weeds over the course of this week. You guys know how that is. Figured that we would take an easier day today. I'd get everything set up. I'd go to the juvenile courthouse to report on the Ricky Pearsall incident. I figured I'd take all that today, and then I would show up here at night and give you the nice full 49ers Jets rundown. So let's move this to a 49ers Q&A. Post your questions. Somebody thinks that the 49ers secondary and new coordinators will make a huge difference on the defensive side of the ball. Yeah, I agree. I think this is the most DB heavy defense that we've seen in the Shanahan Lynch era. I could even put this up on the screen to help illustrate. You've got Charvarius Ward now joined by Isaac Yiadom, so you're not worrying about having to play Embry Thomas. You've got Diamaro Lenore settled into the nickelback spot. You really like Rock Yassin as veteran depth. You really like Darrell Luter Jr. as a veteran depth. You really like Renardo Green as a rookie that could fill in. I mean, this is a deep, deep secondary, and we haven't even gotten to the safeties yet. Jair Brown, interception machine, Malik Mustafa. This is the best the 49ers have been in the defensive backfield over the course of the Shanahan Lynch era. They also have Nick Sorensen, a new defensive coordinator, in-house hire, plus Brandon Staley, who's helping scheme some plays up. We'll see how complex the coverage combinations are. And listen, this is also just week one. It's about setting stuff up for the long run. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. I think it's going to be fascinating to see the schematic wrinkles of the 49ers add to their repertoire on a week-by-week basis. So sit down, enjoy the game, but as you're watching it, remember this is just one. 49ers hope there's 20 of these. 1 out of 20 stress fests. Everybody's going to be stressed out. But they've played 20 games in each of the past 3 seasons. No, I put it on Twitter today, and this game is going to be our first test of it. But this was, just my take on if the 49ers have improved or if they haven't improved. I broke it down position by position. Quarterback has improved for the 49ers because Brock Purdy's better, even though QB2 might be worse. I think running back has improved. I talked to Mike about it. He thinks he's not as sure because they lost Elijah Mitchell, but I would say that Jordan Mason has gotten a lot better. He's got to still show that he can pass protect at a high enough level, but I think he's gotten a lot better. And they added Isaac Guerrero. So I think running back's a little bit better than it was last year. I think wide receivers improved because you've added Jacob Cowing. I know Ricky Pearsall's unavailable for the first 4 games, but at the very least, the 49ers have Cowing right now on top of Ayuk, on top of Deebo Samuel. I think you could also say the tight end might be improved, although this one's a little bit more up for debate, the 49ers. Tight end, you lost Charlie Werner, but he only had 11 catches in 4 years. I get it. Charlie Werner was a very, very good blocker for San Francisco, but 11 catches in 4 years is not a threat in the pass game. And I think Eric Saubert might catch that many passes this season alone for the 49ers. I think that the offensive line is improved. I mean, you have the same starters minus Spencer Burford, who was the worst starter on the line. Dominic Pooney has taken a spot at right guard. Depth-wise, they weren't great last year. They're hoping they're going to be a little bit better this season with the development of somebody like Nick Zakelj, Jalen Moore. Brandon Parker is now aboard on the 53-man roster. So that's going to be the 49ers' job. I would say defensive line, well, if you go back to the defensive line, it's retooled. I don't think the defensive line was particularly good last year. You had major, major issues, even effort issues opposite Nick Bosa. So you went out and got one of the guys that's one of the biggest hustlers in the game in Leonard Floyd. And you had big-time issues on the inside at defensive tackle for the 49ers, trying to stop the run, availability issues with Eric Armstead. So you went out and got Malik Collins to supplement Javon Hargrave there in the middle, along with Jordan Elliott. So I think the defensive line may have improved for the 49ers. Linebacker, I think that's part of the team that you can't say got better because you don't have Dre Greenlaw right now. If and when he comes back at full strength with the Achilles injury, we can have another conversation about linebacker, maybe throwing somebody like Curtis Robinson into the mix. And the DBs, as I said, DBs are the best the 49ers have had under Lynch and Shanahan. As you can tell, way more position groups have improved than regressed for San Francisco. And that means that I think talent-wise, roster building-wise, they succeeded in doing what they had to do this offseason, which was use a limited amount of cap space to make the team better on paper. Now we find out if what they've done on paper can translate to the field. It's going to entail injury avoidance. It's going to, entail making good adjustments over the course of the season. And it's going to be a lot easier said than done to be good. But guess what? It's going to begin on Monday against the Jets. So back out to the facility tomorrow. I'll be all over all this. We're going to delve into the matchup. This was your first cursory overview. So hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. It was great to have everybody. See you tomorrow from Levi's.